We've seen plenty of bad things happening at Disney parks in terms of maintenance, in terms of design, in terms of things just not working right and even falling apart. Still, it shocks us when a brand new attraction just opened inside Disney's most, shall we say, invested upon park in the world suddenly has vehicles running over a small child. That is the sort of thing that sends shivers up our spine and makes us wonder what in the world is going on in the design and the surveillance of these attractions. And has Walt Disney Imagineering gone so far that now perhaps these rides aren't even safe? Let's talk about it right now. Hello folks, welcome back to the happiest place on YouTube. No, it's not the Disney Parks blog, it is the WDW Pro channel, and we're happy to have each and every one of you. You are the electricity that makes all of this possible. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, today we're talking about a topic that is rather gruesome, I suppose, and that is that an attraction, brand new, just opened at the Shanghai Disney Resort, well, it ran over a child. Thankfully, we don't believe that this was something that was fatal in any way, but it was something that could have been, and it's something that was extremely dangerous. We're not going to show photos or anything like that, and for the privacy of the family and of the child, we're not going to do any kind of, update on medical situations. We're simply going to talk about the mechanics of this ride, and the fact that this could even happen at all. Well, it's deeply, deeply worrisome, because there are simple things that could be done so that this doesn't happen. We know there are flukes, these sorts of things can happen, but it really shouldn't within just a few weeks of opening. That's a bad, bad sign. And we're going to talk about it with some theme park experts. Folks, here's the panel. Let's get started. Well, it's about to get spicy, folks, so I hope you have eggnog at the ready, because where we're going next is a little bit bizarre. I think it calls into question exactly what in the world is going on with Disney. To give people a rundown of what we've been covering here, and covering accurately, by the way, and proportionately, we would never slant this not one bit, but the Walt Disney Company, as of late, we've seen in Disneyland a lamppost fall and crash upon the heads of guests. We've watched as they spent all of their Jungle Cruise refurbishment money on social virtue signaling, ESG, DEI initiatives, that from Carmen Smith, the lovely Imagineer. We have watched as they have had breakdowns, rides that don't work. We have watched as the little lights have stopped twinkling at Epcot. Now we're watching as a ride vehicle in Shanghai for a brand new attraction ran over a kid. Seriously, it ran over a child. Bet you didn't hear that on many of those Disney Pixie Dust blog sites, but we're going to read it now. Laughing Place, kudos to you. Zootopia Hot Pursuit in Shanghai Disneyland shuts down after child is struck by a vehicle. That's what we've got right here. And this is by Mike Mack. Zootopia Hot Pursuit, the new centerpiece attraction of Zootopia in Shanghai Disneyland, is down today after an apparent incident involving a child jumping from a ride vehicle and getting hit and dragged by another. Here's what it says. Let's see. On the 25th, that's yesterday on Christmas, it had reopened, and the official Shanghai Disneyland website issued the following statement. Zootopia Hot Pursuit will resume operations this morning. All guests are required to comply with the resort's operational guidelines as they experience the attraction. Please also note that in the opening phase, pauses and downtimes may occur from time to time in Zootopia as we run over children. Sorry, not as we run over children. That was pro. In the event of downtime, guests should follow on-site cast members' instructions. We appreciate the understanding and cooperation of our guests during this opening period when we're running over children. No, I put that in again. So we'll just give the full idea here, because we've seen images. I'm sure you on the panel, some of you have seen the images of the child. We're not going to show those. That's totally, totally inappropriate. I would recommend that if there are any out there sharing that image, that you blur the child. It's a parent's worst nightmare. But here's where I want to go with this. The idea that a brand new trackless attraction in a Disney park where they are funneling all the profits from Disney World are basically going to fund expansion in Shanghai. The idea that this sort of an attraction would continue to run after a child jumps out, there should be multiple fail-safes to stop this. So fail-safe number one is that when the child exits the vehicle, that should be recognized by the vehicle because the weight distribution has changed immediately. And so that should key in the video or the vehicle, because the vehicle has to adjust based on weight for its maneuvers. And so that should be key number one. So the onboard computer should figure that out. Second thing that should happen here is that when a child exits the ride, you would anticipate that some of these sensors in the attraction would pick that up. System number three of redundancy here is that surely there is someone who's supposed to be on a camera system watching, on surveillance, and when the child exits the vehicle, they immediately hit the e-stop, emergency stop button. None of that happened. And it begs the question, exactly what is Imagineering doing if brand new attractions are running over children? I get that the child's not supposed to jump out of the vehicle. I get that the parent's supposed to watch the child. But I also get that in a theme park that has thousands of people riding this thing, hour after hour, day after day after day, that things like this will eventually happen. And on every other attraction, it seems to me that there's a system in place to say, hey, let's stop this. And this didn't happen. Vash, I want to go to you first on this. What in the world is happening at Disney parks where they have now a trackless system where a ride vehicle, not only one vehicle, but two vehicles. One vehicle, the child exits, a second vehicle strikes the child and drags the child underneath it. What in the world is going on?
Yeah, this is a really odd one because we've been hearing about extended downtime at Disney's other wirelessly controlled vehicle attractions, like Rise of Resistance, for example, or even Mickey & Minnie's Runaway Railway, when you have hats flying off and so forth, and the vehicles go over them and get offset a little bit, they'll immediately e-stop, and that is that. So whatever system that you do implement, you don't want necessarily to be so sensitive that you have extended periods of downtime for, things that are relatively minor. That being said, you do want to have a system in place that can track when a kid gets out and jumps out and gets on that surface there. It's I was looking into this a little bit, and it looks like the Zootopia attraction features these ride vehicles that have a single lap bar that goes across, which, for something like maybe Jurassic Park or Jurassic World, River Adventure, that might be okay because you have a certain height requirement. So the disparity between riders isn't necessarily as great as when you have some a small child, maybe 7, 8 years old, versus somebody who's maybe 200 pounds or more, right? That disparity is going to be very, very great, allowing for this to unfortunately occur. Whereas Rise of the Resistance has individual seat belts, and that keeps riders in place a little bit better. Why they would implement lap bars in this case? Probably due to capacity, right? If you don't have to check individual seat belts, you can get that ride vehicle dispatched at a quicker interval, which increases your capacity. This is the big e-ticket attraction for this area. I could see why they'd want to increase that throughput, but you see, Universal Studios, for example, and their lawyers, I know, have placed an enhanced emphasis on you have to be able to make ride vehicles that keep people in their seats. We can't have even the possibility of this. So it is two different mindsets playing out here, and unfortunately, Disney was on the losing end in this particular case.
At least nobody jumped out of the ride vehicle and decided to disrobe on the ride. We know Disney does a great job of handling issues like that.
Oh boy!
Since we're very close to the same topic, by the way, that appears to be Girl Zell over there on the left,
which will be the topic of this afternoon's video that I'll be covering. Where apparently, and I think this goes back to the issue. Okay, so with Jungle Cruise, they came in, they spent all these, this huge, vast amount of money, bundles and bags of money on updating it so that we were not laughing at the animatronic animals. Seriously, that's one of the objectives they have. We should not laugh at the animatronic animals. We should laugh with the animatronic animals. And so they spent all this money on that. They made sure that they had the totem pole where the guy is climbing the stick to get away from the rhino. They made sure that was now culturally sensitive and appropriate. I.e., it's a pale, pasty guy who's getting the rhino horn up the never mind. But
he's the butt of the joke.
He's the butt of the joke. Well played, culture. In this case, here we have this Shanghai thing where apparently they tried to sneak some stuff past Chinese government censors, and now those Chinese government censors may be aware of that. They will be after this video comes out later today. They did all this, but they've got a ride that'll strike and run over children. So maybe the money's not being allocated properly. I don't know.
And here's my question about this whole thing. Okay, so it happens. Accidents happen. These types of situations. How did they restart? You said they restarted the ride. The thing is back open already. Like they've done
one day later. Yeah,
I believe the day after. Yeah.
The next day. So I mean, Vash, you were talking about there's a single lap bar. And I mean, that sounds like a design flaw, to some extent, at least. I'm not sure. I'm not an expert on this, but it just sounds like it might be a flaw in the design. And maybe, to prevent this from happening again, let's examine exactly what happened, how it happened. And yeah, you're going to have kids that do things that are unorthodox that nobody expects. We have to prepare for those types of contingencies. And if this lap bar is not going to be able to hold, a 50-pound child or a 60-pound child in
this
place.
This is a little kid. I'll tell you that. I've seen the pictures.
I haven't seen the pictures, and I honestly don't want to see them.
Yeah, it's a very small child, and so
So if this can happen today, it can happen tomorrow. It can happen the next day. So why are we not shutting this thing completely down and revamping this and figuring out how do we get a ride that's going to protect people? And I just don't understand.
I was surprised.
You know what's funny? You think about what looks dangerous versus what actually is dangerous. The track layout here does not look dangerous because it's a concrete floor. And when you think about It's a Small World, you would think that no one would want to jump out of It's a Small World because you're jumping into what could look like it's deep water, depending on the lighting, or looks like a bunch of machinery that is probably going to chew you up a little bit, depending on how the lighting looks, or the Doom buggies in Haunted Mansion.
Yeah, there are places you don't want to jump out of Haunted Mansion. I'll tell you that.
Right, but there's also that this looks like you could step out of it and you would be safe. As opposed to Haunted Mansion, if you step out into one of those areas where you're not quite sure what's going on, there are pressure sensors that will detect you and they will shut down the ride for you. And I'd imagine Haunted Mansion, I mean, the legend of people trying to discard of loved ones' ashes on Haunted Mansion is that they've got people watching at all times. Well, this kind of flies in the face of the idea that they've got people watching at all times. And also the fact that this looks so nice and welcoming, I think works to their disadvantage. Because if people think that it's not safe, even though it is definitely not safe, then they're going to be more likely to go into these areas and do things they're not supposed to do. And this child interpreted that they could get out and walk around for whatever reason, and obviously got hit by a ride vehicle.
Or they slipped out. That's another option, is that, number one, you've got the lap bar in place. You don't have seatbelts. This is a very small child, based on what I saw. Now, we can't know for sure, but to me, this looks like a child who's nowhere close to being a teenager. We're talking about little kid, right? We're talking about 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, somewhere in that vicinity, I would say. And I'm curious, was the child in the middle? Because that's standard procedure, is that kids that small are supposed to go in the middle of a vehicle in any attraction. Right. Was the child on the side? If the child was on the side, can they slip out of that lap bar? And the idea that the response from Disney Shanghai is to cajole the guest to say, follow all procedures. It's like, well, now, wait a minute. Are we sure this thing is safe for kids? This thing's been open for a month and you ran a kid over.
Okay, real quick. Let's just full stop. This is in China. Problem one.
Yep.
Problem two, they have different safety standards in China as far as amusement rides go than we do here in the United States. Okay. This attraction didn't exist yet in the United States. The forward thinking that's done in Imagineering sometimes isn't followed. You can see that in some of the early Shanghai Park reports of its unfinished quality, especially of the main castle there. We can get into a lot of things that I know specifically about Shanghai, but this is not surprising to me that this was something that happened, because they don't value certain things and they don't put the onus on the theme park company, put it on the individual there to protect themselves. The biggest problem that I have with this is that it's rather easy to laser map a floor consistently and constantly to get an attraction to auto stop, to full stop.
Right. Exactly right, culture.
Infrared mapping can do the same thing. You have guest tracking built into almost everything now at Disney. You can't escape being tracked by every inch of the parks now. So that's another failsafe that doesn't exist. And even going back into the later or the early park iterations in like 82 at Epcot, when they were in the process of building Horizons, they integrated pressure plates throughout that attraction, and only if you were part of the Mesa Verde crew did you understand how to circumnavigate that. So
What a reference. What a reference.
Oh man. Oh man.
lack of preparation always leads to devastation, and that's what happened here. I anticipate when this is regurgitated in the United States in all of its woke glory, that we will have some of these issues addressed before it gets here. But other than that, we're going to get in a marginal attraction, just as what's presented in China here in the United States as well. Disney is no longer about innovating; they're about regurgitating.
Yes,
the only advice that I want to give to parents, if you are going to go into this Shanghai park, you need to make sure that your credit score is low enough that they're monitoring you at all times.
Well, and I'll say that I get the joke there. The quip is well taken. But folks, if you think we're being harsh and maybe it's on the parents, here's what I would say. I agree that parents should watch their children. But I also agree that if you're on the, let's just say that you're on a carousel, there's going to be a time, maybe once a day, that a child is going to try to get off the little horsey on the carousel. I expect somebody to hit the button to slow the carousel down and say, ladies and gentlemen, please get back on the horse or we will have to stop this ride. Okay? That's what I expect. If you have a ride where the vehicles drive themselves, if a child gets out, I expect it to stop and say, ladies and gentlemen, we are stopped momentarily while we retrieve a child and put it back on the ride. Thank you. I don't expect the ride to run over the child and drag the child. At some point, I expect the computer system to say, whoops-a-daisy, looks like we've got an extra passenger underneath. Let's stop.
I doubt that there's a system of recourse that's as robust over in China like we have over in the United States, where I doubt that you can sue Shanghai Disneyland, which is, let me just check, owned by the Chinese government. Owned by a company that is owned and controlled by the Chinese government. Yeah. So you can't sue the Chinese government and get them to fix this issue when they would just say, keep your child in line. And by the way, that same situation at Universal Studios Islands of Adventure, that happened with us. We were controlling our children, and they shut down the carousel over somebody who refused to stand in the correct place on the ride. Not even drifting out of spot, but refused to stand in the right place. So at Universal, they take this issue very seriously. I'll say that.
And that's a wrap for today, folks. We hope we handled this topic in the most appropriate fashion possible. We hope we did it with the respect and all of the due diligence that you all know and come to expect out of us. Folks, if you like content like this, of course, not the subject matter itself, but the manner in which we parsed this out to you, click the like button, share, subscribe, and when you click it, you stick it to the algorithms. It's the notification bell. Drop a comment down below. Let us know your thoughts. Are we being overly harsh? Is this the parents' fault? Or is this on Disney? Is it on Disney indeed? And should they take the time to stop and figure out exactly how this happened and how to stop it, make sure it never happens again, lest it be worse? Drop a comment down below and let us know. Folks, wherever you are and whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and as always, keep having fun.